This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. Not with a bang, but in delirious laughter.
Alright, I heard the sound. Here it comes. Pro Motocrosser 354, Alex Harville. See you on the other side. Oh, yeah.
On the 3rd of January 2020, the Iranian general Qasem Soleimani was assassinated in Baghdad by a US airstrike. Ordered 8 months prior to its execution, the murder represented a considerable escalation of the US's long shadow war on Iran. It illustrated clearly that tensions between major world powers today threaten to flare into open war, with Russia and China engaged in joint military exercises with Iran just prior to the attack, and the EU imperialist bloc desperately attempting to forge an independent policy in the face of US unilateralism. For a moment, this reality became unavoidable. The Third World War started to trend on social media, and a volley of memes rose to greet the new decade.
I think I'm about to steal!
Look at us. Hey, look at us.
Look at us. Huh? Who would have thought?
Not me.
Friendly predator missile incoming.
It is important to note that this is by no means new. Memes about a Third World War have been produced since at least 2011. Hashtag World War III trended on social media in both 2017 and 2018, following US actions in Syria. What is unique to the wave which burst forth following Soleimani's assassination is simply its scale. Hashtag World War III trending on all major Western social media platforms. Fundamentally, these incidents are driven by a broader historical process. Simply put, the population of particularly the Western imperialist nations, deprived of historical consciousness through decades of cultural warfare, are today being thrown into the gravest crisis ever faced by humanity. The aesthetic form of the meme, when applied to such a political conjecture, gives clear expression to the dimensions of this contradiction.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
これは鳩ですか?
Huh? Hato?
In our documentary, A Dying Culture, we argue that memes as a whole represent a people's pastiche, written in an oppressor's tongue. Pastiche refers to the dominant aesthetic form of the postmodern epoch, that is, the combination of old styles and forms, but without their meaning. Whilst this form is evoked by social media in general, the meme is a clear expression, being constructed primarily upon excerpts of older cultural forms. Screenshots or scenes from television shows, photographs and videos with popular music over them, and so on. By written in an oppressor's tongue, we are referring to the way in which this pastiche is shaped to suit the environment created for us on social media, which is designed by bourgeois forces. Despite these clear limits, it is only by grasping that the form of the meme is at once both manipulated and authentic that we are able to understand its power as an ideological form. Before considering the political character of World War III memes as a whole, we will turn briefly to a subsection of them: draft memes.
Come on now, dog. Come on, man. Whoa! What the fuck? What is this?
The initial intent of these memes, which originate within black communities on Twitter, was to highlight the racism in US imperialism's approach to drafting soldiers. This authentic political content, however, proved impossible to retain when #World War III went viral. The endless stream of depoliticized imitations which followed the initial meme, drowning out its message. More than this, the meme was subsequently weaponized, with aggressively reactionary caricatures of transgender people, disabled people, and women using their identity to escape service, coming to form the main output of this type. An expression of one specifically oppressed group's anger was first depoliticized, then weaponized against other specifically oppressed groups. This demonstrates one way in which political memes are limited in their utility. Of course, it is not the only way in which these limits are imposed. As many social media users in the oppressed world, particularly in Iran, were quick to point out, World War III memes as a whole represent a world outlook which is fundamentally premised upon national chauvinism and racism. The actions which led to #World War III trending on social media were taken by the US against Iran specifically. For populations in the West, and particularly the US, to treat the incident as one which poses a direct and immediate threat to them is not only false, it covers up the voices of those who do face such a threat. Whilst the assassination of Soleimani certainly represents an escalation in a global conflict, the dominant reaction in the West betrays a culture with no awareness of its historical or material position in the world. At least for now, the ramifications for the Western imperialist world will take place in the economic and political realms, or upon faraway fields. Ground zero will not be New York. It may well be Tehran. To grasp an element of this peculiar Western historical consciousness, we must return to the general aesthetic form of the meme. As we have said, memes are built upon excerpts of other cultural texts. The application of this method of aesthetic representation to the subject of a Third World War reveals, simply, that the form excludes real historical thought. The most egregious examples make this clear. For example, those strains of meme attempting to portray #World War III with excerpts of video games are perhaps best described as a form of fascistic absurdism. However, perhaps the most revealing examples are those memes intended in protest to a Third World War. The earlier mentioned draft memes serving as the clearest example of this type. Not only are these cultural products distorted, depoliticized, and even weaponized by the functioning of social media spaces, they present an unreality in their very construction. Whilst a draft is indeed possible, The comparison with prior wars this evokes is inaccurate. The conduct of the coming war will be unique. The inability of the meme to capture this is a finite limit. No cultural products today produced by bourgeois society capture the real form of the historical processes which today confront us. Thus, no representation based upon excerpts of these cultural forms can capture anything of these processes. It is functionally impossible. What has been discussed reveals something of the meme's political limits and the manner in which it is being weaponized by bourgeois society. There is, however, a more fundamental observation that we must attend to. In the face of global war, the imperialist world did not shout out in protest, but laughed. Whilst this reflects the reality that culture is today a weapon, the degree to which it has proved effective can only be explained by the assertion that culture today possesses a certain religious character in Western imperialist societies. This is to say that it has come to inform reality more than reality itself, that it is once both intimately shaped by the interests of the ruling class and an authentic expression of deeply human feeling. If the meme represents a people's pastiche, then culture as a whole, as Marx said of religion, has come to form the sigh of the oppressed creature, the heart of a heartless world, and the soul of soulless conditions. And just as the rulers of ages long buried kept their subjects gratefully servile by the weaponization of this sentiment, so too have our rulers induced such a tender agony in our hearts. Whilst we must be sympathetic to this condition, we cannot let it go unchallenged. To be blunt, the road to extinction may yet be long, but we are upon it. No crucifix, nor television, nor TikTok may turn us around. Only we can.